Alright, welcome to Lesson 5. If you're just joining me now and didn't watch my vlog, it's because I'm in an open house and it's not that busy, so I thought I had a few minutes to read some Rich Dad Poor Dad for you. And I'm wearing this because I have to, and it makes me look like I'm giving you life-saving advice and knowledge. So, Alright, I'm going to have to kind of MacGyver the... Well, I couldn't really. There's no place for me to hold the phone here, so I'm gonna do this. Hopefully it's not too weird. Okay, on with the show. Last night I took a break from writing and watched a TV program on the history of a young man named Alexander Graham Bell. Bell had just patented his telephone and was having growing pains because the demand for his new invention was so strong. Needing a bigger company, he then went to the giant at the time, Western Union, and asked them if they would buy his patent and his tiny company. He wanted $100,000 for the whole package. The president of Western Union scoffed at him and turned him down, saying the price was ridiculous. The rest is history. A multi-billion-dollar industry emerged and AT&T was born. Evening news came on right after the story of Alexander Graham Bell. On the news there was a story of another downsizing at a local company. The workers were angry and complained that the company ownership was unfair. A terminated manager of about 45 years of age and his wife and 2 babies at the plant, and was begging the gods to let him talk to the owners to ask if they would reconsider his termination. He had just bought a house and was afraid of losing it. The camera focused in on his pleading for all the world to see. Needless to say, it held my attention. I've been teaching professionally since 1984. It had been a great experience and a rewarding one. It was also a disturbing profession, for I had taught thousands of individuals, and I see one thing in common in all of us, myself included. We all have tremendous potential, and we're all blessed with gifts. Yet the one thing that holds all of us back is some degree of self-doubt. It is not so much the lack of technical information that holds us back, but more the lack of self-confidence. Some are more affected than others. Once we leave school, most of us know that it is not so much a matter of college degrees or good grades that counts. In the real world outside of academics, something more than just grades is required. I heard it called many things: guts, chutzpah, balls, audacity, bravado, cunning, daring, tenacity, brilliance. This factor, whatever it is labeled, ultimately decides one's future much more than school grades do. Inside each one of us, of these brave, brilliant, and daring characteristics, there's also the flip side of that character, people who could get down on their knees and beg for it if necessary. After a year in Vietnam as a Marine Corps pilot, I got to know both of these characteristics inside of me immediately. One is not better than the other. Yet, as a teacher, I recognized that it was excessive fear and self-doubt that were the greatest detractors of personal genius. It broke my heart to see students know the answers, yet lack the courage to act on the answer. Often in the real world, it's not smart who get ahead, but the bold. In my personal experience, your financial genius requires both technical knowledge as well as courage. If fear is too strong, the genius is suppressed. In my classes, I strongly urge students to learn to take risks, be bold, and let the genius convert that fear into power and brilliance. It works for some and just terrifies others. I have come to realize that for most people, when it comes to the subject of money, they would rather play it safe. I would have to field questions such as, why take risks? Why should I bother developing my financial IQ? Why should I become financially literate? And answer, just to have more options. There are huge changes ahead. In the coming years, there will be more people just like the young inventor Alexander Graham Bell. There will be 100 more people like Bill Gates and hugely successful companies like Microsoft created every year and all over the world. And there will also be many more bankruptcies, layoffs, and downsizings. So why bother developing your financial IQ? No one can answer that but you. Yet I can tell you why I myself do it. I do it because it is the most exciting time to be alive. I'd rather be welcoming change than dreading change. I'd rather be excited about making millions than worrying about not getting a raise. This period we are now in is a most exciting time, unprecedented in our world's history. Generations from now, people will look back at this period of time and remark at what an exciting era it must have been. It was the death of the old and birth of the new. It was full of turmoil and it was exciting. So why bother developing your financial IQ? Because if you do, you will prosper greatly. And if you don't, this period of time will be a frightening one. It will be a time of watching some people move boldly forward, while others cling to worn-out life preservers. Land was wealth 300 years ago. So the person who owned the land owned the wealth. Later, wealth was in factories and production, and America rose to dominance. The industrialist owned the wealth. Today, wealth is in information. The person who has the most timely information owns the wealth. The problem is that information flies around the world at the speed of light. The new wealth cannot be contained by boundaries and borders as land and factories were. The changes will be faster and more dramatic. There will be a dramatic increase in the number of new multi-millionaires. There will also be those who are left behind. I find so many people struggling today, often working harder simply because they cling to old ideas. They want things to be the way they were. They resist change. I know people who are losing their jobs or their houses and then blame technology or the economy or their boss. Sadly, they fail to realize that they might be the problem. Old ideas are their biggest liability. It is a liability simply because they fail to realize that while that idea or way of doing something was an asset yesterday is gone. One afternoon, I was teaching how to invest using a board game I had invented, Cash Flow, as a teaching tool. A friend had brought someone along to attend the class. This friend of a friend was recently divorced, had been badly burned in the divorce settlement, and was now searching for some answers. Her friend thought the class might help. The game was designed to help people learn how money works. In playing the game, they learned about the interaction of the income statement with the balance sheet. They learned how cash flows between the two and how the road to wealth is through striving to increase your monthly cash flow from the asset column to the point that exceeds your monthly expenses. Once you accomplish this, you're able to get out of the rat race and into the fast track. As I have said, some people hate the game, some love it, and others miss the point. This woman missed the valuable opportunity to learn something. In the opening round, she drew a doodad card with the boat on it. At first she was happy. "Oh, I've got a boat!" Then, as her friend tried to explain how the numbers worked on her income statement and balance sheet, she got frustrated because she had never liked math. The rest of her table waited for her friend to continue explaining the relationship between income statement, balance sheet, and monthly cash flow, and suddenly, when she realized how the numbers worked, it dawned on her that her boat was eating her alive. Later on in the game, she was also downsized and had a child. It was a horrible game for her. After the class, her friend came by and told me that she was upset. She had come to the class to learn about investing and did not like the idea that it took so long to play a silly game. Her friend attempted to tell her to look within herself to see if the game reflected her in any way. With that suggestion, the woman demanded her money back. She said that the very idea that a game could be a reflection of her was ridiculous. Her money was promptly refunded, and she left. Since 1984, I've made millions simply by doing what the school system does not. In school, most teachers lecture. I hated lectures as a student. I was soon bored, and my mind would drift. In 1984, I began teaching via games and simulations, and I still rely on these tools today. I always encourage adult students to look at games as reflecting back on them what they know and what they need to learn. Most importantly, games reflect behavior. They are instant feedback systems. Instead of the teacher lecturing you, the game is giving you a personalized lecture, one that is custom-made just for you. The friend of the woman who left later called to give me an update. She said her friend was fine and she had calmed down. In her cooling-off period, she could see some slight relationship between the game and her life. Although she and her husband did not own a boat, they did own everything else imaginable. She was angry after their divorce, both because he had run off with a younger woman and because, after 20 years of marriage, they had accumulated little in the way of assets. There was virtually nothing for them to split. That 20 years of married life had been incredibly fun, but it had accumulated was a ton of doodads. She realized that her anger at doing the numbers, the income statement, and the balance sheet came from her embarrassment about not understanding them. She believed that finances were the man's job. She maintained the house and did the entertaining, and he handled the finances. She was now quite certain that in the last 5 years of their marriage, he had hidden money from her. She was angry at herself for not being more aware of where the money was going, as well as not for knowing nothing about the other woman. Just like a board game, the world is always providing us with instant feedback. We could learn a lot if we tuned in more. One day, not long ago, I complained to my wife that the cleaners must have shrunk my pants. My wife gently smiled and poked me in the stomach and informed me that the pants had not shrunk, something else had expanded. Me. The cash flow game was designed to give every player personal feedback. Its purpose is to give you options. If you draw the boat card and it puts you into debt, the question is, now what can you do? How many different financial options can you come up with? That is the purpose of the game, to teach players to think and create new and various financial options. Thousands of people throughout the world have played this game. The players who get out of the rat race the quickest are the people who understand numbers and have creative financial minds. They recognize different financial options. Rich people often make creative and take calculated risks. People who take the longest are the people who are not familiar with numbers and often do not understand the power of investing. Some people playing cash flow accumulate lots of money in the game, but they do not know what to do with it. Even though they have money, everyone else seems to be getting ahead of them, and that is true in real life. There are a lot of people who have a lot of money and do not get ahead financially. Limiting your options is the same as hanging on to old ideas. I have a friend from high school who now works at 3 jobs. Years ago, he was the richest of all my classmates. When the local sugar plantation closed, the company he worked for went down with the plantation. In his mind, he had but one option, and that was the old option: work hard. The problem was, and he couldn't find an equivalent job that recognized his seniority from the old company. As a result, he was overqualified for the jobs he currently has, so his salary is lower. He now works 3 jobs to earn enough to survive. I've watched people playing cash flow complain that the right opportunity cards are not coming their way, so they sit there. I know people who do that in real life. They wait for the right opportunity. I've watched people get the right opportunity card and then not have enough money. Then they complain that they would have gotten out of the rat race if they had more money. So they sit there. I know people in real life who do that also. They see all the great deals, but they have no money. And I have seen people pull a great opportunity card, read it out loud, and then have no idea that it is a great opportunity. They have the money, the time is right, and they have the card, but they can't see the opportunity staring them in the face. They fail to see how it fits into their financial plan for escaping the rat race. And I know more people like that than all the others combined. Most people have an opportunity of a lifetime flash right in front of them and then fail to see it. A year later, they find out about it after everyone else got rich. Financial intelligence is simply having more options. If the opportunities aren't coming your way, what else can you do to improve your financial situation? If an opportunity lands in your lap and you have no money and the bank won't talk to you, what else can you do to get the opportunity to work in your favor? If your hunch was wrong and what you've been counting on doesn't happen, how can you turn a lemon into millions? That is financial intelligence. It is not so much what happens, but how many different financial solutions you can think of to turn a lemon into millions. It is how creative you are in solving financial problems. So most people only know one solution: work hard, save, and borrow. So why would you want to increase your financial intelligence? Because you want to be the kind of person who creates your own luck. You take whatever happens and make it better. Few people realize that luck is created just as money is. And if you want to be luckier and create money instead of working hard, then your financial intelligence is important. If you're the kind of person who's waiting for the right thing to happen, you might wait for a long time. It's like waiting for all traffic lights to be green for 5 miles before you start your trip. As young boys, Mike and I were constantly told by my rich dad that money is not real. Rich Dad occasionally reminded us of how close we came to the secret of money on the first day we got together and began making money out of plaster of Paris. The poor and middle class work for money, he would say. The rich make money. The more real you think money is, the harder you will work for it. If you grasp the idea that money is not real, you will grow rich faster. What is it? What is it? Was a question Mike and I would often come back with. What is money if it is not real? What we agree it is, was all Rich Dad would say. The single most powerful asset we have is our mind. If it is trained well, we can create enormous wealth seemingly instantaneously. An untrained mind can also create extreme poverty that can crush a family for generations. In the information age, money is created exponentially. Money is increasingly flubbed that one up, didn't I? In the information age, money is increasing exponentially. A few individuals are getting ridiculously rich from nothing, just ideas and agreements. If you ask many people who trade stocks or other investments for a living, they see it done all the time. Often millions can be made instantaneously from nothing. And by nothing, I mean no money was exchanged. It was done via agreement, a hand signal in a trading pit, a blip on a trader screen in Lisbon from a trader screen in Toronto, and back to Lisbon. I called to my broker to buy and a moment later to sell. Money did not change hands. Agreements did. So why develop your financial genius? Only you can answer that. I can tell you why I have been developing this area of my intelligence. I do it because I want to make money fast. Not because I need to, but because I want to. It is a fascinating learning process. I develop my financial IQ because I want to participate in the fastest game and biggest game of the world. And in my own small way, I would like to be part of this unprecedented evolution of humanity, the era where humans work purely with their minds and not with their bodies. Besides, it is where the action is. It is what is happening. It's hip, it's scary, and it's fun. That's why I invest in my financial intelligence, developing the most powerful asset I have. I want to be with people moving boldly forward. I do not want to be with those left behind. I will give you a simple example of creating money. In the early 1990s, the economy of Phoenix, Arizona was horrible. I was watching a TV show when a financial planner came on and began forecasting doom and gloom. His advice was to save money. Put $100 away every month, he would say. In 40 years, you will be a multi-millionaire. Well, putting money away every month is a sound idea. It is one option, the option most people subscribe to. The problem is, it blinds the person to what is really going on. Alright, we got a little blurb here. 20 years ago today, why savers are losers. In the 1970s, we could save our way to retirement. Passbook savings accounts earned double-digit interest, and savings account could actually grow our wealth. Those days are long gone. Enter NIR, or negative interest rates, or interest rates below zero. Today, many banks are charging savers to hold their money. The savers are truly losers. Or your interest rate is lower than the rate of inflation, which also makes you a loser. Anyway. But putting money away every month is a sound idea. It is one option. The option most people subscribe to. The problem is this: it blinds the person to what is really going on. It causes them to miss major opportunities for much more significant growth of their money. The world is passing them by. As I said, the economy was terrible at the time. For investors, this is the perfect market condition. A chunk of my money was in the stock market and in apartment houses. I was short of cash. Because people were giving properties away, I was buying. I was not saving money, I was investing. Kim and I had more than $1 million in cash, working in a market that was rising fast. It was the best opportunity to invest. The economy was terrible. I could just not pass up these small deals. Houses that were once $100,000 were now $75,000. But instead of shopping with local real estate agents, I began shopping at the bankruptcy attorney's office or the courthouse steps. In these shopping places, a $75,000 house could sometimes be bought for $20,000 or less. For $2,000, which was loaned to me from a friend for 90 days for $200, I gave an attorney a cashier's check as a down payment. While the acquisition was being processed, I ran an ad advertising a $75,000 house for only $60,000 with no money down. The phone rang hard and heavy. Prospective buyers were screened, and once the property was legally mine, all the prospective buyers were allowed to look at the house. It was a feeding frenzy. The house sold in a few minutes. I asked for a $2,500 processing fee, which they gladly handed over, and the escrow and title company took over from there. I returned the $2,000 to my friend with an additional $200. He was happy. The home buyer was happy, the attorney was happy, and I was happy. I sold the house for $60,000. That cost me $20,000. The $40,000 was created from money in my asset column in the form of a promissory note from the buyer. The total working time, 5 hours. So now that he was wholesaling essentially. So now that you're on your way to becoming more financially literate and skilled at reading numbers, I will show you why this is an example of money being invented. Okay. So, what do we got? Is that not focusing? Let's see what it says up here. $40,000 is created in the asset column. Money is invented without being taxed. At 10% interest, $4,000 a year in cash flow is added to income. So we got balance sheet. You got a $40,000 note, goes to income, and then so basically that's the how much he gets right from selling the house, on top of the amount he stuck into the initial investment. During this depressed market, Kim and I were able to do 6 of these simple transactions in our spare time. While the bulk of our money was in larger properties in the stock market, we were able to create more than $190,000 in assets. Notes at 10% interest. In those 6 buy, create, sell transactions that came to approximately $19,000 a year in income. Much of it was sheltered through our private corporation. Much of that $19,000 a year goes to pay for a company's cars, gas, travel, insurance, dinners with clients, and other things. By the time the government gets a chance to tax that income, it's been spent on legally allowed pre-tax expenses. And then, let's see. Let's read the paragraph and then go to the diagram. This was a simple example of how money is invented, created, and protected using financial intelligence. Ask yourself, how long would it take to save $190,000? Would the bank pay you 10% interest on your money? And the promissory note is good for 30 years? I hope they never pay me the $190,000. I have to pay tax if they did pay me the principal. And besides, $19,000 paid over 30 years is a little over $500,000 in income. I have people ask what happens if the person doesn't pay. That does happen, and it's good news. That $60,000 home could be taken back and resold for $70,000, and another $2,500 collected as a loan processing fee. It would still be a zero down transaction in the mind of the new buyer, and the process would go on. So here's the... How much income would you have to earn if the government takes 50% in taxes? How long would it take to save $40,000? So you have your, what is this, job gives you salary, then you pay taxes, and then it goes into your asset column. How much income would you have to earn? Well, I don't know. Assuming the only expense is taxes, then you'd have to earn $80,000 to make $40,000. But of course, life costs more than just taxes, right? Anywho, the first time I sold a house, I paid back the $2,000, so technically I have no money in the transaction. My return on investment, or ROI, is infinite. This is an example of no money making a lot of money. In the second transaction, when resold, I would have put $2,000 in my pocket and extended the loan to 30 years. What would my ROI be if I got paid money to make money? I do not know, but I'm sure it beats saving $100 a month, which actually starts out as $150 because it's after-tax income for 40 years earning low interest. And again, you're taxed on the interest. That is not too intelligent. It may be safe, but it's not smart. A few years later, as Phoenix real estate market strengthened, those houses were sold for $60,000 became worth $110,000. Foreclosure opportunities were still available, but became rare. It cost a valuable asset, my time, to go on looking for them. Thousands of buyers were looking for the few deals available. The market had changed. It was time to move on and look for other opportunities to put in the asset column. You can't do that here. That's against the law. You're lying. I've heard those comments much more often than, can you show me how to do that? The math is simple. You do not need algebra or calculus, and the escrow company handles the legal transaction and the servicing of the payments. I have no roofs to fix or toilets to unplug because the owners do that. It's their house. Occasionally someone does not pay, and it's wonderful because there are late fees. Or they move out and the property is sold again. The court system handles that. 20 years ago today, crashes. There have been 3 major crashes in the past 30 years. The first was of 1989 to 1990 when the real estate became cheaper than ever. The second was 2001 to 2002 when the dot-com bubble burst, and the third 2008-2009 when the housing bubble burst. Each of these was an opportunity to invent money. So every 10, no, less than 10 years. What does it mean for now? And it may not work in your area. The market conditions may be different, but the example illustrates how a simple financial process can create hundreds of thousands of dollars with little money and low risk. It was an example of money being only an agreement. Anyone with high school education could do that. Yet most people won't. Most people listen to the standard advice of work hard and save money. For about 30 hours of work, approximately $190,000 was created in the asset column, and no taxes were paid. Which sounds harder to you? Work hard, pay 50% taxes, save what's left, your savings earn 5%, which is also taxed, or Take the time to develop your financial intelligence, harness the power of your brain and the asset column. If you use option number 1, be sure to factor in how much time it takes you to save $190,000. Time is one of your greatest assets. Now you may understand why I silently shake my head when I hear parents say, "My child is doing well in school and receiving a good education." It may be good, but is it adequate? I know the above investment strategy is a small one. It is used to illustrate how small can grow into big. Again, my success reflects the importance of a strong financial foundation, which starts with a strong financial education. I've said it before, but it's worth repeating. Financial intelligence is made up of these 4 main technical skills. Number 1, accounting. Accounting is financial literacy, or the ability to read numbers. This is a vital skill if you want to build a business or investments. 2, investing. Investing is the science of making money, make more money. 3, understanding markets. Understanding markets is the science of supply and demand. Alexander Graham Bell gave the market what it wanted. So did Bill Gates. A $75,000 house offered for $60,000 that cost $20,000 was also the result of seizing an opportunity created by the market. Somebody was buying, somebody was selling. 4, the law. The law is the awareness of accounting, corporate, state, and federal regulations. I recommend playing by the rules. It is this basic foundation, or the combination of these skills, that is needed to be successful in the pursuit of wealth, whether it be through the buying of small homes, apartment buildings, companies, stocks, bonds, precious metals, baseball cards, or the like. A few years later, the real estate market rebounded and everyone was getting in. The stock market was booming and everyone was getting in. The U.S. economy was getting back on its feet. I began selling and now traveling to Peru, Norway, Malaysia, and the Philippines. The investment landscape has changed. We were no longer buying real estate. Now I just watched as the values climbed inside the asset column and will probably begin selling. I suspect that some of those little 6 houses deals will sell and the $40,000 note will be converted to cash. I need to call my accountant to prepare for cash and seek ways to shelter it. The point I would like to make is that investments come and go. The market goes up and comes down. Economies improve and crash. The world is always handing you opportunities of a lifetime every day of your life, but all too often we fail to see them. But they are there. The more the world changes and the more technology changes, the more opportunities there will be to allow you and your family to become financially secure for generations to come. So why bother developing your financial intelligence? Again, only you can answer that. I know why I continue to learn and develop. I do it because I know there are changes coming. I'd rather welcome change than cling to the past. I know that there will be market booms and market crashes. I also want to continually develop my financial intelligence because at each market change, some people will be on their knees begging for jobs. Others, meanwhile, will take the lemons that life hands them, and we're all handed lemons occasionally, and turn them into millions. That's financial intelligence. I'm often asked about lemons I have turned into millions. I hesitate using many more examples of personal investments because I'm afraid it comes across as bragging or tooting my own horn. That is not my intention. I use the examples only as numerical and chronological illustrations of actual and simple cases. I use examples because I want you to know that it is easy, and the more familiar you become with the 4 pillars of financial intelligence, the easier it becomes. Personally, I use 2 main vehicles to achieve financial growth: real estate and small cap stocks. I use real estate as my foundation. Day in and day out, my properties provide cash flow and occasional spurts of growth and value. The small cap stocks are used for fast growth. So low risk, high risk. I do not recommend anything that I do. The examples are just that, examples. If the opportunity is too complex, I do not understand the investment, I do not do it. Simple math and common sense are all you need to do well financially. So he's essentially a venture capitalist for the cheap stuff, so buying like penny stocks, and essentially he's gambling. There's a lot of accounting trickery that even though they release financial statements, you can't trust them. So he's just putting safe money mostly into real estate, and then he's taking the small amount of money that he can gamble, and he's willing to risk it to make turn $1,000 into $1 million. Like, Shibu currency or whatever, cryptocurrency. So it's just all speculation at that point. There are 5 reasons for using examples. 1, to inspire people to learn. 2, to let people know it's easy if the foundation is strong. 3, to show that anyone can achieve great wealth. 4, to show that there are millions of ways to achieve your goals. And 5, to show that it's not rocket science.